of somebody choosing their wife when she's only in sixth grade? Sixth grade. Yeah, I said sixth grade. That's exactly what Greg did. He was watching her up on the stage, and he was an eighth grader, and he wrote in his Bible, I, Gregory J., will marry Lynette Martin to be stopped by nobody. One problem was she didn't even know his name. That sounds like the beginning of a long romance, doesn't it? Well, nothing could be further from the truth. You see, once he got her number and he started to call her, her parents found out. And as soon as her parents found out, they said, no calls, no dates until you're 16, and you better let him know. And so she let him know, and he quit calling. But that's not where it ended for her, because that little seed had started in her heart, and that crush that she had just grew and grew and grew. All through middle school and all through high school and even past then, this crush she had on him just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it didn't really make any sense why it should. She really didn't know him that well. I think it was because she had had a taste of what it was like to be wanted, and she wanted to be wanted again. Well, that girl was me. And that crush was something that had a hold on me for a very, very, very long time. Well, during middle school and during high school, I also really loved God. But I never made any kind of connection between the fact that I loved God and I had this huge crush on this guy. Well, I found out a few years later that there is, in fact, a connection, and that we were created to want to be wanted, and we were created that way by God himself. A few years ago, I heard this saying that man's rejection equals God's protection. Any of you guys ever hear that? Okay, I'll say it again. Man's rejection equals God's protection. Now, if you had told me that when I was in middle school or high school, I would have probably been very angry at you, or in the least rolled my eyes, because who wants to hear that, right? You don't really want to hear that when you really want a boyfriend. You want someone to like you. Because somehow in our society, and I know things haven't changed, boyfriend equals value. Any of you guys ever feel that way? Boyfriend equals value? That if I have a boyfriend, then that means that I'm liked, somebody likes me, and that I'm wanted. Well, for me, since boyfriend didn't equal value, somehow I changed it to what I do equals value. Now, I come from a very large family. I'm number 7 of 8 kids. Can anybody in this room beat me on that one?
Did I go over? No, you're fine.
Ha! 1 of 14. Whoa. I feel like I'm from a small family. Well, I am, like I said, number 7 of 8 kids. And in order to provide for a family that big, my father had to work and work a lot. So he would get up on Monday morning and he'd go work in a foundry all day long, and he'd come home and have his supper, and then he'd go to work all night. And then he'd come home about 9, do his little shower, and get up and do it again. And he did that day after day after day. Well, needless to say, he wasn't around much, and he wasn't there to give me attention. Now, when you're a little girl, you don't know that that's something that you want and that you crave is attention, but that is exactly something that we want. Again, we want to be wanted. But there was something that I figured out, and that was that when I performed, Daddy came. If I ran cross-country meets, my dad would get off work and come. If I would perform in a choir concert, my dad, if he could, would get off work and come. And so I figured it out that performing equaled attention. And I also figured out that it wasn't just true with Dad. It was true with Mom. It was true with teachers, youth pastors, coaches. If I did what I was supposed to do, I got attention. Anybody else happen to see how this works? that when we're getting good grades or doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing, we get the attention that sometimes that we want. Now, can any of you so far relate to any part of my story, either wanting the attention of a guy or wanting the attention of your dad? Any of you experienced anything like that? Yeah, it's very, very common for us girls to want that in our lives. And something that I've learned is that often our relationship with our dads will mirror our relationship with God. Now, if you're one of those girls whose dads is really into you, you totally have his attention and he is into all the same things that you're into and he's really affectionate, that's great. But if you're a girl like me, whose dad doesn't give that to you, then it can make that transition a little bit harder. And somewhere in there, I made the transition from dad to God, but I made it all wrong because I figured if all of those same performing worked with my dad and other people, then it would work with God too. Around about that time, it came time for me to graduate from high school, and so I went to Bible school. That just seemed like the logical thing to do next. And right about that time, that's when God interrupted everything for me. And he brought into my life some really amazing women. And the women in my life said, "You've got it all wrong. God is not into how you can perform for him. He's not into how many Bible studies you can attend or how good you can be. What God wants is you. What he wants is a close, intimate relationship with you." Now, I am so glad that God isn't like my impatient geometry teacher. I don't know, have any of you guys had one of those teachers that's just really impatient and has no time of day for you? Yeah, well, math's not my deal. As you can see, I'm a speaker. Speakers equals no math whatsoever. And so my sophomore year, while I was trying to squeak through those required classes, I was taking geometry and I flunked my first geometry test. I don't know if anybody else here is mathematically challenged like me, but I flunked that test and my geometry teacher put me in the back of the classroom. And I said, "I don't get this." And he said, "Obviously. Therefore, we are going to put you in the back of the classroom and you figure it out." Now, how am I going to figure it out in the back of the classroom? Well, I am so glad that God isn't like that. Sometimes when we're a little messed up about who he is and what he's like, he's not like that impatient geometry teacher. He doesn't say, "Sorry that you don't get me." In fact, he does quite the opposite. And like I said, in my life, he sent some amazing women to teach me about what he was like. Well, right about this time that these women were talking to me, one of them one day gave me a letter, and it went something like this. "I think you are so beautiful, Lynn. Let me start at your feet and go all the way to your head. Your toes are so pretty, they each should have a ring on them and then be slipped into soft and lovely slippers fit for a princess. Your hands are so soft with fingers that are slender and feminine, a diamond placed on each one. Your arms are strong and defined, but perfect for a lady. They each deserve silk gloves to your delicate elbows. Your cheeks are smooth and rosy, surrounding a smile that's captivating. Just looking at your hair makes me want to run my fingers through it and never stop." Now, when I read that, I thought, it's about time. It's about time that there's somebody who is crazy about me. But, I kind of had a hard time believing it was true. I had grown up hearing what other people thought of me. I had this same hair when I was in high school. And my nickname was Lucy. Do any of you know Lucy from the Peanuts gang? Do you have images like, wow, she's hot? No. Does anybody want to be compared to Lucy from the Peanuts? No. Well, the same guy who gave me this nickname, one day my senior year, I'm walking down the hall of social studies, and he says, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Lynn, you're so flat. Why do you bother wearing a bra? You should just wear Band-Aids." Now, come on. This is true. We're not hiding nothing here. but you don't need to make a public statement out of the fact. So I was used to hearing how other people thought about me, and it didn't sound anything like that letter I just got. And right about that time, she gave me another one. Dear friend in love, you're beautiful. Your beauty is too much for me. I'm in over my head. I'm not used to this. I can't take it in. Your hair flows and shimmers. Obviously, he was missing the whole kinky thing. There's no one like you on earth, never has been, never will be. You are a woman beyond compare. My dove is perfection. Everyone who came by to see you exclaimed and admired you, and before I knew what was happening, my heart was raptured, carried away by lofty thoughts. He had my attention. I really was listening to everything he had to say. And then they gave me one more. You are my perfect one, unique. After my friends gave me those letters, they told me that all of those notes were written to me by Jesus. That all of those are verses that are straight out of the Song of Solomon. And they are all verses that talk about how Jesus saw me. Now, I had grown up hearing about Jesus. I had heard that he was my Savior, my shepherd, my friend, all of those things. But I had never heard anything like that before. But that was exactly what I needed to hear. Now, I wonder if any of you girls have that in common with me. That words like that are words that you would love to hear too. That you would love to hear that someone is crazy, flipped out about you. And you can relate to that with me. You know, many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the song, Girls Just Want to Have Fun. You know, Cyndi Lauper, she needs to know exactly what we all want, right? Girls just want to have fun. Well, I think it's a lot deeper than that. I think that the truth is that girls really just want to be loved and adored and admired. Well, I'm here to tell you that there is someone who is crazy about you, that Jesus really is that into you. First of all, I want you to know that he wants you, that Jesus is so into you that the thing that he wants most of all is a personal, one-on-one relationship with just you. Now, many of us have experienced just the opposite of wanting to be wanted, like I explained with my good friend Dave. We've experienced rejection, just like she talked about. How many of you guys have experienced betrayal from a best friend? Or maybe you have had a boyfriend who broke up with you. Or even an angry parent. Maybe you let a parent down in their eyes and that angry parent rejected you. We all know and have experienced at some point what that rejection feels like. But one day I was thinking about God and his crazy love for me, and I started thinking about the fact that when I was created, when each one of you in this room were created, he knew exactly how you were going to respond to him. You know, in that friendship that you had or that boyfriend that you went out with, maybe you had a thought at one point, if I had only known that was the way things were going to turn out, I would have never, you can fill in the blank. But the really amazing thing about God is when he created each one of you, he knew exactly how it was going to turn out. He knew which ones of you were going to return that crazy love back to him. He also knew which ones of you would say, you know what? Let me do my thing. Let me have a little bit of fun. And as soon as I get out of college, then I'll follow you, God. And he also knew which ones would just flat out reject him. And yet, because he wants relationship with us so bad, he continues to create us because he has that desire to have relationship with us.